Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse, and nothing particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a bit and see the watery part of the world. It is a way I have of driving off the spleen and regulating the circulation. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially whenever my hypos get such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. This is my substitute for pistol and ball. With a philosophical flourish, Cato throws himself upon his sword. I quietly take to the ship. There is nothing surprising in this. If they but knew it, almost all men in their degree, some time or other, cherish very nearly the same feelings toward the ocean with me. Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be doing a book review of Moby Dick, the American classic written by Herman Melville in the middle of the 19th century. Um, I'm not going to go too much into the background of Melville, but I do know when it was published at first in about the 1850s, it was not very well received. I don't think it sold very well. And it wasn't until after Melville's death and well into the 20th century that it actually got some praise. And it wasn't until like the 1920s or 30s that people started to realize that this was a master work of American literature. Now, I'll just give a quick kind of summary for those who don't know what the book's about. I'll try not to spoil anything, although I wouldn't consider it a book that's suspenseful in the way where there is something you can spoil, like in Harry Potter, Dumbledore dies. Well, that's kind of a spoiler for people. And if you don't know that by now, then well, shame on you if you haven't read the Harry Potter books. So the book starts with our narrator Ishmael, and as if you listen to me in the beginning, that was the first paragraph of the book. He says when he's feeling restless and melancholy, he goes out to sea, and that's exactly what he decides to do. He meets this interesting character named Queequeg, who is also about to go whaling. And now Queequeg is a native islander, and at first Ishmael's kind of scared of the guy, but eventually they become good friends. They find a ship called the Pequod, in which they embark from, I want to say they're in Massachusetts somewhere, and they go around the world whaling, uh, killing whales, and getting their sperm oil that is apparently very luxurious and important. Now, one of my favorite characters from the book, and I think one of the best characters probably in literature, is Ahab, the captain of the ship. Now, Ahab is this crazy old man basically who lost his leg to Moby Dick, the white whale, and he is, um, as Melville describes it, a monomaniac looking for this whale to kill him eventually. Now, now, eventually, at the end of this 600-page tome, they do find the whale. I won't spoil the ending exactly for you. Um, yeah, so that's basically the story. Not much really happens. Now, in this, I'm going to go into the strengths and weaknesses of the book, and I'm going to tell you if you should read it or not. Now, some of the strengths of the book. Definitely the prose is very strong. Now, I know this is kind of a subjective thing, but I think this is one of my favorite books in terms of English prose. Now, it was originally written in English, so I think I can judge it by its prose. I haven't really read anything else that comes this close to English prose. Now, I might change my mind after I read some more books, but that's all I have to say about that. Melville sometimes slips into this kind of Shakespearean language where he uses these and thys. Some of the characters speak that way, and then he himself, or I guess Ishmael, when he's narrating slips into this kind of Shakespearean language, which I really enjoyed, and I think is something that's really hard to pull off, but Melville did it perfectly. It's almost like reading poetry sometimes. Um, and I'd have to say that was my favorite part of the book, honestly. The story itself was pretty good. The characters were pretty good. Um, Now I'll get kind of into the negatives and then I'll come back around and maybe give it a rating. One of the things that I guess there weren't any real negatives, but probably about half of the pages were dedicated to um, information about whales themselves, whaling, how the people actually extract the sperm oil. And I found this very interesting at first, and I didn't mind it that much. But one of the problems I had was that he just kept going on describing every single part of the sperm whale, talking about how glorious whaling is as a enterprise, talking about the ships, talking about the history, talking about all the different kinds of whales. And I'd have to admit it was interesting, but to a certain point, I would have liked more story, which we didn't get very much of, at least for my taste. But then at the same time, I mean, you know, you can't really talk that much about what they were doing because they weren't really doing much. They were just sailing around killing whales. Um, so yeah, I don't really know what else I have to say. I do have this theory, and if anybody actually watches this or listens to this and has read Moby Dick, I was thinking towards the end of the book because in the beginning of the book, you see a lot of Ishmael. Ishmael talks a lot about himself. He's in the action. He's doing things. He's saying I. Towards the end of the book, however, the I drops out a lot. You don't really know what's going on with Ishmael, although you're assuming he's still narrating. And the book instead shifts towards the character of Ahab, the crazy captain. Now, I have a theory, and I'll have to read through the book again sometime to see how well this stacks up. But I was thinking that maybe Ishmael is Ahab. They're the same person, actually. Now, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Leave it in the comments section. Overall, I would probably give it probably like an 8 stars out of 10, just because I was reading it for a fun adventure story kind of, where instead I got this kind of tedious voyaging thing, which has a lot of information about whaling and whales. Now, I wouldn't say this is a must-read book. It's not like top 10, top 20 literature of all time, but I would definitely suggest getting around to it. It is an American classic, and it is kind of iconic in American literature. So, thanks for watching, and that's that.